Welcome back to the Nullify Take, where I've got the TNT takes for you on Australian Survivor Blood vs. Water, episode 22. We are one episode away from the finale until we crown a new winner for Australian Survivor, and I'm really excited to see who of these remaining 5 players in the game will actually walk away with the crown. This was a really interesting episode because we saw 6 people left in the game. The 3 players from Purgatory have made it all the way somehow back in the game and into the top 6, and 3 players that remain in the game that have never been voted out are Mark, Josh, and Chrissy. So it shows you how strong this Purgatory twist is. We've had 2 seasons now in a row where someone's come back and they have made it almost all the way until the final of the game. We've obviously had previous years where people have been voted out of the game and they've made it also through to the final in Australian Survivor. So it shows how strong it can be when you've been voted out, how it can really move your game ahead towards the end game here. And it's still something I feel iffy about, to be honest. But let's get into the top 5 talking points for this specific episode. Talking point number 1. There's a really big narrative here this episode with Josh and Mark and Jordy. These 3 players, in my opinion, are the 3 strongest players, and they're probably one of them is going to win this season if I had to judge based on the edit, based on what we've seen, and also based on the game they've played. It has been the most impressive. You could argue someone like Shay has played a really good game physically, but I don't think that she really outplayed anyone, or she's really controlled the narrative in regards to where this game has moved. And I feel like if she did get to the end, she probably wouldn't get the same respect as a Jordy, as a Josh, or a Mark. So due to this, the 3 players, I think all 3 of them know that they probably have an easier road ahead of them if they get to the final and they don't sit next to each other. They probably will get most of the votes in that scenario. So due to this, Josh has now worked with the Joker as Two-Face. They've teamed up and they made this move in the previous Tribal Council to get rid of Juicy Dave. And Jordy feels very confident that Josh is going to stick with him throughout this episode. He talks to his Purgatory 3 saying he's now moved Josh over to them, and he thinks this is the way forward. But in Josh's mind, he's got to make a decision. Does he go back to Mark and to Chrissy, the 2 people he have trusted this whole game, or does he put his game into the Joker's hands? And I think that one of the key things here that Jordy has underestimated from Josh throughout this game, it's always about what is in that person's best interest. And Josh is a player, to me, that seems like he wants calmness, he wants consistency, he wants to know that you'll have his back. So therefore, he's always protected Mark, even when he knew that Mark had idols, because he never felt like he could know what Jordy would do next. And also, let's not forget, Jordy did make a move against Josh early in the game. So due to those reasons, I think Josh always wanted to work with Mark more so than Jordy. But again, like he said in the previous episode, he wanted to flush the idol that he was certain about to help sort of even the playing field so he doesn't get idled out of the game. So in this episode, he still has that thing in the back of his head where he knows he's betrayed Mark and he's voted Sam out of the game. And how will Mark respond to that? Will Mark still work with him, or should he take Mark out in this position? Because he is a strong player who can also win immunities and probably has a case if it comes to the final 3 to pitch for the win. Ultimately, Josh decides in this spot that he is going to stay true, obviously, to that alliance with both Mark and Chrissy, which did not come as a surprise to me at all. Talking point number 2, Josh wins his 3rd immunity, and it is his 2nd immunity in a row. He once again proves that he is someone to be reckoned with in this game. He's had the best position, in my opinion, throughout the game in regards to running his alliance, being right at the center of that onion within the top 6 alliance that they had prior to the Purgatory 3 coming back. I think he was greatly situated to go all the way into the end and win this game. But what happened was obviously his cousin Jordan got taken out. He had to scramble from there to get back on top, remove Juicy Dave, and also he had to remove Sam so that the playing field between him and Mark could be equal. But every single episode, it seems like whoever Josh is actually targeting is the person who's going to go home. So again, that's why I give a lot of credit to Josh. I think he's played a stellar game up until this point. Now, this point is about the immunity win. And I think that with the game that he's had running so much off the vote, people coming to him, not wanting to make a move against Mark or Sam until he was ready to do it, I think it really proves that he is the ultimate threat this season, having won three immunities. He's won more than anybody else, and proving that he can do the physical stuff out there, like the obstacle course side of it, but also the puzzles. It really shows that he is someone to be reckoned with, and that going into the end game, I just don't see how Josh and Mark sits next to each other. I think whoever wins the next immunity will probably try to take a stab at the other one in the game. And I feel like Mark has told us he needs to work with him a little bit longer, but he is going to take that move or make that move pretty soon. Talking point number 3. Chrissy makes her first real big game move here in this episode, and she helps Josh within the immunity challenge to win it. She does the immunity challenge, gets to the puzzle part where they have to build this vertical puzzle. She wasn't too sure what vertical meant, which was quite a funny moment, a Chrissy moment there. But they have to build this puzzle. She stops halfway through and starts helping Josh by looking at Jordy's puzzle. And doing this, she is actually showing her cards here because Mark, who is also an alliance member of hers, her second alliance member, she did say in this episode that Josh is her number 1 and Mark is her number 2. She chooses to help Josh in this case, and to beat Jordy, I think it was the right move, but she kind of shows a little bit of her allegiance in this episode. And luckily, Mark does not take this in a bad way. He's cool about it, because like he said, Jordy is his target this episode, so as long as he doesn't win the immunity, he's happy with it. But it does force Mark to play that second idol, so it's not all ideal for Mark at the end of the day that Chrissy decided to help Josh in this episode. And it is quite late in the game, so you can't fault Chrissy too much for showing her cards so openly in front of everybody. There's only 6 players left after this episode. There's going to be 5 players left, and on the surface level, it looks like she's in a good position because both Mark and Josh wants to work with her. And I think that even if one of the two gets taken out, Chrissy might still be able to work with the other one. And she is in a majority 3 alliance at this stage. I think also with Chrissy, she has been a lot of fun to watch this season. I love seeing her on the TV screen. I think she deserves to get her own TV show and have a camera crew follow her around. It would be absolutely hilarious to see her go about her day. But the one thing about Chrissy is she has gotten a bit lucky in the sense that the people that were taken out in this season were very close to the 2 people she has a number 1 and number 2 alliance with. For instance, Jordan got blindsided, which made her more important to Josh. Nina earlier in the season got Mediavac, which also meant that she could get closer to Josh. And then in Mark's case, Sam got blindsided in the previous episode, which also made her closer to Mark. So in some ways, the chips have fallen in the right way for Chrissy to, as backwards, stumble her way towards the end game here. And like you said, a lot of her game has been more so social. So I don't think Chrissy is a threat to win this game, because I believe you need more than just the social game. You need more than just the physical game. You need to show the jury that you actually had an influence in the direction that the game took, strategically, socially, and also physically. And I don't think she's got all 3 of those components. Takeaway number 4. Jordy goes out swinging this episode. He pitches very hard to Josh to keep him. He obviously wants to continue to work in that alliance, and he mentions that both him and Josh are the biggest targets still left in the game, and that if they work together, they can get into the final 3. Jordy also tells us that he believes he's played the best game, and I think that is debatable, but if you think about it, he was in that majority alliance for most of the pre-merge. He came into the merge at a very strong position as well within that alliance, but then decided to make a move very early on to take out the power structure, and he tried to target firstly Mark when Josh didn't want to bite and move on that. He then changed it around to try and target Josh, and due to that move, his brother got taken out of the game. This meant that he then fell outside of the majority alliance as well, and ultimately did get his torch snuffed to go to purgatory, but he found a way back in the game, and then also found a way to get back on top with the numbers, scrambling to the position that he was in. And he also won some key individual immunities at times. So I do agree that Jordy has played an extremely impressive game. It's been volatile to watch, and you've got to wonder if he played it a little bit differently, and if he didn't make that move as early as he did against Josh, how far could he have gotten in the game? Because I feel like in Survivor, you can turn on people. You can lie to them, but you've got to choose when you do that because your word is your bond. And if you do that too early, you're burned. Like no one wanted to work with Jordy for the rest of the game. There was one vote where Josh thought my my specific priorities aligns with yours this episode, but it doesn't mean that it's going to align with you for the rest of the episode. So, or for the rest of the season. Jordy also goes and tries to do a Hail Mary in this episode by going to Mark directly and saying, listen, I know you don't want to play the idol, which Mark really didn't want to play the idol in this episode. And he says, I will vote with you for Shay. So happy to turn Shay as a potential vote to try and get Mark not to play that idol. And Mark almost, I feel like, considered it at one point, but he doesn't trust Jordy. He knows Jordy's coming for him and ultimately does play it in this episode. So good effort by Jordy to try all angles, even the angle of going to his enemy to try and turn them around to say, hey, don't play the idol. I'll work with you. And then he actually does vote for Shay, which was interesting to see at the end. So he must have thought, Mark must have convinced him that, yes, I will vote with you. And he fell for it in the end. Overall, I've liked watching Jordy this season. I'm always a fan of the underdog. I think Jordy is one of those players that even Jonathan really loved out there to see him play the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jordy play in a future season. He obviously fell short here in this season, but he did get a car out of the experience. And also, if you could be out there on Survivor and you played a game similar to Jordy where you made an impact and people will remember your name because of how you played the game, I think you've done a good job. So hats off to you, Jordy. Well done. I salute you. It was a great season, and I would love to see you back in the future to try and bring some of that Joker magic back to the screen. I'm very much happy with the fact that we've moved away from Kings and Queens for a little bit here to create Jokers, Two-Faces, and Dark Knights within the Survivor metaverse, if you Survivor metaverse, if you could call it that. Also, the Dark Knight ultimately does win. So if you call yourself a bad guy, most likely you're not going to make it to the end because the hero always wins, don't they? Now to the last talking point here for the episode. Talking point number 5. Is Shay and KJ really completely out of this game? Or is there a way for them going into the end game to make it into a final 3 situation? I kind of feel like Josh probably won't win the next immunity, but it's either Josh or Mark to win this, or Shay could come back and win another immunity. But Mark has just revealed that he has the idol. So with that, he has finally shown Chrissy and Josh that he's been lying about it for weeks. So it's going to be interesting to see how he overcomes that. He now does not have the protection of this idol next week. So he really needs to win immunity, or he could potentially be in danger. On the surface level, it looks like we've got a 3 versus 2 situation here. But for some other reason, I feel like Mark is savvy enough to know that if Josh does not win this next immunity, he needs to take him out, and that he's going to be a threat when it comes to the end game. So I would not be surprised if Mark pivots in this next episode to try and use KJ and Shay as a potential vote to take out the biggest threat left in the game, which would be Josh. That would be an impressive thing to put on his resume. And I think that by doing that, he potentially secures the win for himself if he can get to the end. The one thing I will say, though, is that Mark doesn't seem to be someone that likes to rock the boat or change the direction of the game in regards to how he's played this season. And it's worked out in his favor in this season to remain stable. Like I said earlier, Josh really appreciated that. And I think that the thing that most people this season has valued is the fact that they've been able to stick together as an alliance without rocking the boat. And that's why Jordy didn't do well this season. He might do well in another season where people vote in voting blocks a lot more often and they change who they vote for and who they vote with every single episode, but that's not this season's cast. So can Mark go against what has worked for him for over 40 days now in the game and play a different game here in the end? That would be interesting to see. Now, talking about the idol as well, and Mark playing that idol here this episode, I think that if I was in that position, $500,000 is at stake. I've just copped votes in the previous tribal council. If I didn't play my idol, I would have gone home. Knowing that Josh has already betrayed me once by voting Sam out of the game, and that he potentially could lie to me, and then also knowing that there are rumors around there that I've got a second idol, I think that you play the idol every single time in that situation, and I don't blame him for doing so. Like, playing an idol and playing it incorrectly is better than getting voted home so close to the end with an idol in your pocket. I don't think Mark would have ever lived it down. It would be something that we would have been talking about as one of the dumbest moves for years, even though it must be so difficult in this situation to know what to do. I know that the show showed Sam being disappointed in him playing the idol here, but you can't blame the guy. I think he did the right move in the situation that he was in with the knowledge he had of the couple of with the knowledge he had from some of the previous votes. Without a doubt, I would have played the idol as well. So I know some people would say, "Oh, what a waste of an idol," but I don't think it was. I think he played it correctly in my mind, even though this time it didn't work out. Votes could have easily come his way. Overall, I'm really excited to see how the in-game shapes up here. We have got a very interesting dynamic in my mind with the 5 people, and I think Mark could play a swing vote here in the middle of these two groups. If KJ and Shay can stick together, who knows? Mark might swing over in this next episode and take out Josh. And I think that at this point, if I had to rank who's probably winning this game, I feel like Josh has the biggest chance of winning it if he makes it to the final with Mark in second place. I feel like Mark has to take him out because Josh has really run the game. Unless he's got a horrible tribal council, I feel like Josh has played the best game. And it's just my honest opinion. Mark second, and then I really don't know between the girls who has any shot at winning this game, to be honest. KJ is probably the only one that has made a big move that have resulted in Jordan going home and also Sam going home. So she probably has the best chance with the girls, but I don't know how well she is liked within that jury at the end of the day. That's my top 5 thoughts here for this episode. Stay tuned for the weekend when we do the finale and also our podcast during the week as well. Talk to you guys later. Bye.